Hello, everyone, and welcome to First Issue Reviews. Now, I know I haven't done one of these in ages. It's been probably close to a year now. But I'm starting to get back more into comic books lately, and figured I'd start doing these again. For those of you that don't know, First Issue Reviews is basically a segment where I grab a first issue of some run or comic book. Usually, I try to grab something that's more independent and self-contained, and I basically read the first issue and then give my thoughts on like first impression basically about what that series might hold, if it's worth picking up or reading or even collecting and whatnot. Um, for this issue or episode, we're gonna be talking about the first issue of Lucas Stan, which is a comic by Boom Studios. It's actually a mini series. It looks like because it says 1 of 6. I didn't know anything about this when I just happened to be in my local Books A Million, and it was on sale for like $1. It was like reduced, so I figured I'd pick it up. Also, the thing that really drew me to it, besides the price, was the fact that it had Kirk Sugar's name on it. Like Kirk Sugar's Lucas Stan. And for those of you that don't know, Kirk Sugar is the director, kind of like showrunner for Sons of Anarchy, and he was on The Shield too. He's had, and I love Sons of Anarchy in The Shield. They're two amazing shows. They have their very unique style to them. They're just great shows. And Boom Studios also has put out a lot of Sons of Anarchy books. I need to read those. I haven't done it yet, but they have put out some Sons of Anarchy books. I know Kurt Sugar probably has a lot of, he probably works with them on stuff. So I figured I would try this because I like his style of storytelling. And it's an interesting book to say the least. I don't want to give too much away because it kind of really changes gears in the middle of it. But it's basically a story about an ex-military badass that's going through a rough patch. He's very depressed. He's kind of a drug addict. He's kind of hit shit bottom. We've seen that kind of story before, but Shudder's writing is just great, and all the narrations are just great. He uses there's a lot of like rude just raw emotional like conversation, monologuing going on. He really conveys that this man is broken very well. We get into it's hard to talk about this book without really spoiling it. So I will have a spoiler section at the end of this issue for people that have actually read this and still want to watch. But it is just a very interesting story. It's something I haven't really seen before. Obviously I've seen bits and pieces of elements of it before, but not in this fashion. It's a very interesting twist on the whole redemption kind of story, and I'm actually interested to see where it goes. Now, usually with the nature of these first issue reviews, I don't get to really read the whole series usually because that would just mean that I buy way too many books. The whole idea of these things is for me to limit my book buying to like first issue so that I can give you guys a good idea of what to buy. So I'll probably never get around to finishing this series, but nonetheless, it got me hooked very much in the story. The writing got me hooked. The art, not so much. The art it's okay, but it's kind of got that it's got that kind of grimy, dirty look that I usually don't like in comics. It's weird because the characters are the character art is very not detailed at all, but everything around is detailed. Like it's like the artist took a lot more time to like draw the backgrounds and everything, but the character portraits themselves are just not in focus. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like a artistic thing, I don't know if that's supposed to represent something deeper, like the idea that the character is out of focus because the character doesn't really know who he is anymore. Maybe I'm overstepping my thought logic on that, but that could be what it is. Regardless, the art is the only time I really love the art in this book is when there's an action sequence. For some reason, the fight scenes look really great in this book, but everything else looks subpar. So not graphics, art-wise, this book is kind of subpar for me. I'm not a big fan of the art, but art is subjective, so you guys might love it. It actually looks very similar to the Sons of Anarchy books, which I'm also not a huge fan of the art in those. So if you've read those, you probably like the art in this. So I'm going to jump into the in a few seconds. I'll jump into the spoiler section of this review, so you guys can know more about the story. But yeah, like, I definitely would recommend you guys check this out, especially if you can get it cheap or if you can read it online somewhere. It's just definitely worth a read. It's a very captivating, very adult themed story. It deals a lot with death and life, redemption and second chances. It's a very different read it was a very different read for me. Something I don't see all that often in comic books, especially in the way it was done. But okay, let me jump into the spoiler stuff in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. So yeah, the story right off the bat, the main character, Lucas Stan, or maybe his last name's not Stan, but Lucas dies. he kills himself like in the 5th panel of this book. It's crazy. But that's where the story begins. Because the story is it's an afterlife story. He is met by this mysterious entity, that comes to him in the form of an army general, because Lucas is a ex-military guy. So I thought that was right off the bat. I thought that was clever, that his spiritual advisor would come to him in the form of a drill sergeant. I thought that was awesome, and the guy talks like a drill sergeant. He just gets right into Lucas's face. He doesn't patronize him or try to welcome him. He just literally starts insulting him the second he comes back. It's ridiculous. It's tough love, as you usually get in the military. So I kind of like that idea. And the story is basically Lucas is torn between this evil enemy that the army guy has told him that he needs to fight, and the devil guy is basically trying to say that not everything is as it seems. So there's already this eternal conflict that Lucas needs to choose a side, and both sides want him to join, but he doesn't know what to trust, because he's dead. This is not his world. He doesn't have any experience in this, so he doesn't know what side to choose. And that's what this whole thing is about. The whole first issue is basically him trying to figure out where he stands in this new world, in this new situation, and what side he should choose. Because everything is not as it appears. Also, there's time travel in this. For some reason, there's a whole sequence where he's thrown into the World War II to do a mission. It's really weird. It felt kind of disjointed and kind of took me out of the story at first. But then by the time the issue ends, I felt like I was back in the story. It definitely works. It just feels a little weird at first. This whole issue is very confusing for a while. I mean, honestly, it's still confusing by the time I finished it, but you got to give them props for just throwing you into this stuff head first, not giving you really any insight into the world, and you just got to learn that as the characters learn it, which I liked a lot. So yeah, it was a really interesting issue. I definitely recommend this. I would give the art probably like a 2 out of 5. Well, probably more like a 3 out of 5. And I'd give the art a 2 out of 5, and I would give the story 3 out of 5, which is actually very good for me, because 3 is basically like my average, so because I don't usually give 5 stars out to anything unless it's absolutely miraculous. So as always, thank you guys for watching this review, and stay tuned for more reviews. I know a lot of stuff on my channel has been movie related lately, but I do plan on getting some more comic book related material out there. So just thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks.